I saw that I think somebody was being accused of insider dealing or something using Telegram, and that story attracted my attention because obviously Telegram is being used in a certain way that is not being used or is not usable on other social media platforms. And it seems that, these sort of Bitcoin dealers and people like that are using it for their own nefarious purposes. I think I read it. I can't remember where I read it now. But somebody was remarking that the person who was accused of it was, obviously didn't have the right connections. But obviously Telegram can be used for, well, a range of purposes. What I find about it is that it's basically your own fan club. And you obviously, manage it in a way that you want. You let people argue against you, or you kick them all out, and they're all compliant admirers who will never challenge you. And I like people to challenge me, and I find Telegram a quicker way of getting to know people and interacting directly with them without the terrible censorship of Facebook. So if you fancy being keyboard warrior for truth, logic and morality, please join my Telegram group, assuming you actually want to make a difference and you actually want to use arguments and you're brave enough to argue with people in real life. Or, if not, you can start with arguing with anonymous people online. But I think it is necessary as soon as possible to be making these arguments as real people, using our real names, talking to real people in real life. Or we're just wasting time. We're just doing what is the equivalent of displacement therapy. And I do think things need to be ramped up because every day, as we see, the walls of censorship are closing down upon us to the extent that British MPs are proposing that they themselves be censored. This is how crazy it is. And obviously, something needs to be done. And unfortunately, amongst the now what shall I call them? I'm going to call them alt-right because they don't really have any other form of dignified name. I mean, they may want to call themselves the dissident right, but, it's really the same old bunch of social and political pariahs. So let's call themselves what we really are, the alternative to mainstream conservatism. And I don't care if you're ethno-nationalist or civic nationalist. I think, for the moment, we should put aside our differences and make those arguments legally and peacefully. And they are powerful arguments if only people would just listen to me and understand how it all works. And it's easier than you think. I do realise that there's a lot of talking and a lot of posting and between people who don't ultimately understand each other or don't wish to understand each other. I think I understand you. I know why you won't do what I want you to do. And it's because you won't admit that Christianity is kaput and so is liberalism, and that's a sticking point, that there is no alternative. Because if there were an alternative, you would have thought of it by now. Secular Quranism has been around since 2009, And after all this time, I'm getting the same thing from so-called nationalists. I don't think they deserve to be called nationalists because they're not actually capable of defining the national interest, much less promoting the national interest, because they either won't or discuss it. So the sticking point between me and people who call themselves nationalists, and they are usually anti-Semites and Islamophobes who are not particularly well educated, they want nationalism to be about them. And I'm saying, no, it can't be about you because that sends a wrong message. And in any case, it doesn't work. The national interest is the interest of the nation, and who is part of the nation is, well, it's just a matter of fact. You may not like all these non-whites and in your country, but they are nevertheless citizens of the country, and you can't start from any other standpoint other than this one. You can't wish them away and wish that they'd never arrived, because they're here and their presence has to be factored in, whether you like it or not. So I think the misunderstanding amongst the dimmer nationalists is about what they prefer. And they want their preference to shame the preferences of the civic nationalists, who say they don't really particularly want to kick anyone out, or they don't want to kick anyone out at all who isn't already legally here. So on the one hand, you have these ethno-nationalists who have wish list politics, wanting to turn back time, wanting to be all right already. And those who, being wiser and more educated, realise that they can only start their political campaign from where they find themselves. So politics is not really a comparison of what you might prefer and the person you're talking to might prefer. It's about realising what the reality of the situation is. And the reality of the situation is that the walls of censorship are closing in on us. And if we don't do anything now, they will, eventually crush us. But in the meantime, the plebeians who call themselves nationalists but who steadfastly refuse to engage with me because they're not capable of it, they're the ones who are considered to be the social and political pariahs whose views will not be taken into consideration at all. Now, there is another group who think themselves cleverer than that. They are middle class. They are, basically people who subscribe and are guests on Academic Agent's channel. Now, what is the problem with Academic Agent? Well, it is his Islamophobia. They all hate Islam, and that's why they won't let me on the channel. They won't let me share a platform with them, because if they did so, the idea of secular Quranism would go a little bit further, and it is their intention to suppress secular Quranism because they are all Islamophobes. What shall I do about them? Well, apart from shaming them as Islamophobes, it's of course possible to show how intellectually mediocre they are and how they don't get it yet. They don't get it because they have no solutions. What solutions do they have? the most recent innovations I have noted from academic agent is this really pathetic satirical send-up of Woman's Hour. And, well, what's the point of sending up Woman's Hour if you haven't got an alternative? Of course, my alternative is a secular Quranism that nobody wants to talk about, because they know that in one leap of thinking I have done the equivalent of articulating the most powerful solution to feminism. Unfortunately, the men in the matriarchy that is the West are too afraid of directly challenging it, but I am not. I am directly challenging it openly. And for this reason, they don't want anything to do with me. But they won't even engage with me, because to engage with me is to spread the spores of secular Quranism. So what can be done about this? Well, I have a few subscribers who might want to develop the argument and nudge these intellectually mediocre YouTubers who nevertheless have a bigger channel than me, because the more people like them, then there are people like me. As you can see, I am probably being shadow banned by YouTube with only 4 concurrent viewers at the moment. So the bigger channels would be, people like Ed Dutton of the Jolly Heretic, Felix Rex, who's actually asking for ideas. I'm sure all of them eventually, are hoping for the next stream to come from a comment by one of their followers and subscribers. So it's a kind of symbiotic relationship, but obviously it would help if, there are more people, more intelligent people prepared to consider ideas, who are not crippled by their own denial and their own neurosis. I have said before that it's not original to me, but I think was it Aristotle? I'm not sure, but anyway, he said, or somebody like him said, that that all political problems are problems of morality, and by that it must be understood to mean that people won't do the right thing, and that's why we have a political problem. And I completely subscribe to that thesis. Hello, Midnight Rider. So my problem is the fact that I am dealing with really the worst kind of people, because they are political pariahs, and they are lower class, and they are low education, and as well as all those things, they choose to be anti-Semites and Islamophobes and racists. So, if you want to be, more ostracized from society, that's a way to do it. And I do admit that I do know most of them. Most of the people I know in nationalist circles are like this. There are a few middle class people, but they are crippled by their neurosis and denial, and their flaws of character, and their lack of education, and their refusal to learn from their mistakes. And because they are corrupt in this way, because corruption You don't have to deny. Sorry, you don't have to, be accepting bribes to be guilty of corruption. Corruption is simply ignoring or denying the truth. But obviously these people that I'm thinking about don't think of themselves as corrupt. They think of themselves as noble and having sacrificed their interest to the greater cause, that they have martyred themselves in some way. So they probably do not accept my description of them as having a defect of character, a learning disability, a mental health issue. But this is exactly my position. If you can't do the right thing, and your belief system prevents you from doing the right thing, then obviously your belief system is a problem. And if you are always complaining about people from other belief systems doing better than you, then obviously, your belief system is kaput. And if you refuse to admit that, then you are denying the truth. And if you are denying the truth, you are suffering from a defect of character, learning disability, or a mental health issue. So, at least acknowledge that. So these people will keep saying that they don't like my solution. And because they are so infantilized, they don't realize that it's not up to them. It's not a question of whether they like it or not. It's whether it is necessary to be done. And it seems they don't think it's their responsibility. And this is where Islam is actually quite helpful in stating Muslim identity, because it does say that I don't think okay, so it says we are custodians for the next generation. We are regents, I think. Let me look it up. So it's kind of saying it, but perhaps it's not even exclusive to Islam, because obviously every generation knows that they're going to live and they're going to die and they're going to have children and grandchildren and descendants, and obviously their posthumous reputation depends on what future generations will think of them, and they are obliged as people who are in government are obliged to consider this. They are obliged to consider posterity, which is something that the ancient Greeks did. They did talk about these abstract ideas, which of course the degenerate and morally corrupt no longer do. Oh, damn. Sorry. Sorry about the interruption. Now, where was I? Where was I? Oh yes, regions. I need to find the verse. Regency. Okay, I don't think it's actually in the Quran. There's a lot of history. But anyway, I think it's a generic thing that, we are but custodians of the earth for future generations. You don't have to be Muslim to think about that. It's pretty much well, even the, environmentalists think about that. They want to leave the earth, ecologically in good health for future generations. And our posthumous reputation depends on our ability to do so reasonably well. And so should this also be a moral duty of, well, any honest, reasonable and moral people who call themselves nationalists. Unfortunately, there are not many moral and rational people around, as evidenced by their inability to engage with me. Because, if I am as mad and stupid as they keep claiming I am, then, well, they should be able to tear my ideas apart, and then I would be allowed on all these platforms, and then all my arguments would be shredded before my eyes, and I would be made to look the fool that they've always said I was. But they won't even allow me on their channels, which they control. They could, have me on, kick me out, but they won't even do that. So, if you agree with their attitude and their strategy, then obviously there's nothing more to be said. But if you don't agree, then what you should do is join my Telegram group, and I can tell you what to do and how to deal with these neurotic nationalists who are in denial that secular Quranism is the only alternative. How about that? You can join my group, and I'll tell you how to deal with them, and we can act as a group so that the collective will of those who wish to be moral and rational nationalists, who are not crippled by Islamophobia and anti-Semitism, we can raise the reputation of nationalism out of the moral sewage of the swamp. And this is what I propose. It will mean that you may be hidden in a chat. God, isn't that scary? What? All your ancestors crossed oceans and continents to, get to where they are now. You're afraid of being hidden in a chat on your favourite YouTuber. There are worse things that could happen to you other than being hidden in the chat of your favourite YouTube channel. Aren't there? I'm sure there are much worse things that you can think of. Alan Bastard, thank you for your suggestion. I don't have to talk about secular Quranism the whole time. People, if they wanted to have me on, can invite me to talk about all kinds of topics. I can talk about anything, really. Right? I'm a very good conversationalist. No, the thing is, they don't want me on because they don't want to give publicity to secular Quranism. But you people in the chat should, at least get from these bigger YouTubers value for money. If they think it's a stupid thing, then they should be able to prove that it is stupid. And you want to know if it's really as stupid as you want to think it is, right? I'm sure you do too. But currently, all they're doing is saying, well, we don't have to discuss your idea if we don't want to. But do they have a duty to discuss my idea, even if they don't want to? I put it to you that they do. Because if you're a political commentator, and this is what I also am, I am a number of things. I'm a political commentator, I'm a political scientist, I'm a political activist. And I say, as a political commentator, that I have a duty to comment on any subject that you want me to comment on. Unless I really can't bring myself to, because I'm so bored by it all. And I'm afraid, I just can't bring myself to understand all the ins and outs and the technicalities of lockdown and vaccines. What I know is that people are generally morally apathetic. And they can only be woken from their habitual state of moral apathy by the prospect of change. And they won't care about anything at all if they don't think that anything they do would change a thing. That's why they don't really care. I mean, over the weekend it was put to me that revolution must be around the corner because people must be so angry about vaccines and lockdown. To the extent that the government has vaccinated children and some children have died, and isn't it shocking and isn't it disgusting? And personally, I didn't want to even get up from my chair and, talk about it. It's like shrug of the shoulders. It's almost as if you think, well, who's going to care that some children might suffer from allergies and some children die, as long as most people don't know of that sort of thing happening in their immediate circle. They won't care otherwise, and they don't. So what we must do is to have a leader. Because if you don't have a leader, then you have no central directing intelligence capable of making the political objective known, or even working towards it. So it is necessary that you have a leader. This person that I was talking to seemed to think it was all going to happen spontaneously without a leader. So that is yet another example of putting the cart before the horse. You have to do things in the right order for it to succeed. So if you put the cart before the horse, well, nothing's going to move, right? Nothing is going to move. And really, I am the only person who thinks carefully about these things and who doesn't mind being challenged, who is in fact delighted when people try to undermine my system. Now, Joe, he's actually admitted he had to look at my Telegram group and then he left because he's a little bit afraid of me. Well, you'll notice in the more recent streams he's been, well, challenging me quite a lot, and he's trying to get me to convert to Islam and asking me why I won't. And I keep explaining to him that there is no need for me to convert to Islam because you don't have to be Muslim to support secular Quranism. Right? Can people understand that? And it is necessary that I don't convert because, what Joe is trying to do is it's an act of malign encouragement. So he's basically, he's an Islamophobe and he wants me to follow his suggestion that I convert to Islam, and if I were fool enough to do so, he would say, "Oh, she's just another Muslim. Ignore her because we know what we think of people like her, don't we?" So, I would be a fool to do so, and also, I know that it wouldn't help the sale of secular Quranism, and the way I retain my unique identity is to be a principled agnostic proposing the adoption of a one-party theocracy, which no one else does. No Muslim dares to do it. So that's the reason why I won't convert. And, I thank, all these Muslims who invite me politely and obviously with, goodwill to become Muslim. But my focus is on the presenting of secular Quranism to the political establishment of the West. Because that, ultimately, this is the only way it's going to work. That it is presented officially, formally, to the political establishment, and they can, look at it and say, "Oh, what a good idea! Why didn't we think of it earlier?" Or they're going to look at it and reject it and say, "What a terrible idea it is!" And what I want is for them to formally acknowledge it and accept or reject it, giving reasons. And and then that will do me. I mean, obviously, it's not my job to be a revolutionary and overthrow the state all by myself, when it's just little old me, right? So, the very limited objective that I have is to present secular Quranism as a solution to the problems of Western nations. And obviously the only way to deal with it is to have somebody of moral and intellectual respectability, preferably a public intellectual that most people will have heard of, or, somebody senior in government. I had in mind Lord Sumption, but unfortunately a lot of them have been told to avoid me. Peter Hitchens avoids me. He knows who I am. So, it is a moral problem with the people bumping along at the bottom who are not known for their, moral probity or their intellectual honesty, as well as the people who make up the British political establishment. They are too afraid to deal with me because they know they have no arguments. So my job really is to break the deadlock by getting people to target particular YouTube channels and demand that I be platformed to defend my ideas. And of course, it would give them an opportunity to attack my ideas. But what they're doing now is collectively agreeing to not discuss secular Quranism in rather the way that a child might wish to close his eyes to something. You know, when children, instead of hiding themselves, they close their eyes, thinking that if they can't see you, you can't see them. So that's not the way to do it, folks, because it's an infantile reaction. The people in particular who think academic agent is so clever and wonderful when, you know, he just takes a long time getting to the point that it is necessary to be got to. I know he's trying to monetize all his stuff by, you know, selling it as courses and everything, but it's just wasting time. I'm not here to be YouTuber. I'm here to propagate my message and to challenge people who hate my solution to produce a better one. And if they can't do it, then there is no alternative, is there? So academic agent is basically a little confused about his role. He seems to think that there's plenty of time, when in fact there isn't, because the walls of censorship are closing down on us every day, even as we speak. So there is no time to be lost. And the YouTubers I have in mind, apart from academic agent, would be the Jolly Heretic, Millennial Woes. Can't think of anyone else at the moment. Maybe the distributors, but you know, he's just basically a Christian cuck and coward, and you know, he knows that as a Christian he has no answer to any of my theological questions, and that's why he avoids me. And he knows he can hide behind, you know, all the others who are Islamophobes in order not to discuss my idea, which is hardly manly. So all of you who are genuinely concerned about the future of your country, but who are not having your questions answered by the bigger YouTubers who have basically conspired to silence me, which is also an act of censorship, by the way, you deserve better. And you can get better by, well, telling them exactly what you think of their long-term strategy to ignore the power and glory of secular Quranism. Peter Hitchens, Midnight Rider, is a Christian. You know, he's just one of those. Actually, he's a Jew because his mother's Jewish, right? His mother who committed suicide after running off with the vicar to Greece. And in the end, they had a suicide pact. So that's what happened to Peter Hitchens. And the mother of Christopher Hitchens. Now, obviously, you know, damaged people. Damaged by Christianity. So, there's a lot of accumulated sins to take into account when you think of the history of Christianity and the history of Judaism. And I don't think a lot of people quite understand my perspective, which is really the cosmic historical perspective of what is really well, it is something that we should see in these terms. about the history of Judaism and Christianity and its synthesis of Islam. So I've been saying that Judaism actually points to Islam as the way. And I've put it to Muslims how to deal with Jews. In fact, on Sunday, I finally bumped into a Jewish speaker at Speaker's Corner. But he was only a young man, hardly a rabbi, but at least, he was somebody I recognised as, being obviously Jewish, and we had sort of had some contact with each other through discourse, and he immediately recognised me after, well, my usual spiel. And it is that if Jews really believed what they're supposed to believe as Jews, they would have to convert to Islam. And I think I've made the point, very clearly. I didn't manage to get round to telling Muslims exactly how to say it, because, well, sometimes there's so many people to talk to and you don't get the chance. But this is how you do it, Muslims. I'm also addressing Muslims in this stream. So if you're talking to a Jew, you'll have to say, well, there are 36 capital offences in the Torah, aren't there? And they'll have to say yes, because, it's one of those things that you're supposed to know about the Torah, that it has 36 capital offences. And one of them is being a citizen of a city that has gone astray. What does that mean? It means being a citizen of a city that practices idolatry. And this means that if you are a Jewish citizen of any nation in Christendom, then you are, well, you've already clocked up a death penalty. Now, the idea is that if you really believed in God and believed that he had the power to punish you in the afterlife, then as a Jew, you would know that whatever you weren't punished for in this life, you'll be punished for in the next life. Do you understand? If you really did believe in all that. I know most of you don't. And it wasn't put to you in these terms. But yeah, I mean, when did the Torah change? It has never been officially amended or edited, has it? So it's never changed. The words of the Torah are still the words of the Torah, and if you believe it's the word of God, then it's supposed to be the word of God, and all those 36 capital offences are still live. It doesn't have to be inflicted by Gentiles, because it's not their place to inflict these penalties on you as a Jew. But obviously in the afterlife, when you go to meet your Maker, you will have, I guess, a whole collection of undischarged death penalties awaiting you in your next life, because that is the real horror of being a Jew. It's called Nidachat, by the way. You can find it on Wikipedia. Look up capital offences Judaism. There are 4 methods of execution: death by fire, death by strangulation, death by beheading, and death by stoning. Right? Not very pleasant. You may have clocked up more than one death penalty. So I guess the scenario, the post-life scenario that you would have as a Jew would be to, well, you go and meet your maker, and God asks you, were you a citizen of a city that has gone astray, i.e., any nation in Christendom? And you'd have to say yes, and it said, right, well, you have to be beheaded, and then you come back before me for your other sins, maybe breaking the Sabbath, maybe committing idolatry, maybe adultery, all those other ones I can't remember offhand. That they seem to be mostly sex crimes and breaking the Sabbath. So and then I guess eventually they'll all be discharged, and then you'll be deemed by God to have paid your debt to society, to humanity, so to speak. So it's not a pleasant prospect at all, is it? To think, you try to be so good, doing your Jewish thing and trying to be observant, but you still did this thing wrong that you're going to be, punished by death for. And the only escape is to convert to Islam, because once you're Muslim, you get the easier route to heaven, right? So here's the equivalent of the difference. So if you regard Judaism as a kind of rock climbing, and Islam as a kind of standing on an escalator going up, right? You don't even have to move; you just stand on the escalator. So that is the difference. And that's why I say Judaism fulfills Islam. I mean, of course, this is not the way, Jews look at it. I put it to rabbis, and there's a kind of shocked silence, and they literally don't know how to deal with it. It's never been put to them in this way in all their years. So this would be the perfect way of causing concern and consternation amongst Jews. Well, only the believing ones, because if you don't believe in it, then you're obviously not worried. But this is something that should be put to Orthodox Jews, particularly ultra-Orthodox Jews, who are even more exercised by this than the merely Orthodox Jews. And we would like their answer to these questions. And if they can't bring themselves to become Muslim, then the least they can do is support secular Quranism. And the best way of doing that would be to rank the 4 Gentile religions that I've been asking them to do for years now. And they won't do it because, their official reason is that they don't have to, or that they're scared to do it because of the history of Christian persecution of Jews. And this makes me think of somebody who could actually break the deadlock, but won't do it because of her I better not say. But what I want people to understand is that the deadlock can be broken. This is obviously a new narrative. It's not the usual anti-Semitic narrative of them being, responsible for all kinds of bad things. This is the theological narrative of the purpose of Jews, or the purpose for which God made the Jews his chosen people. And I think it's a narrative that could run and run. And I am still hoping for the cooperation of this person who is crippled by anti-Semitism, I fear. And it saddens me, really. But okay, I have to find other ways around the problem. Obviously, I don't just have one iron in the fire. And obviously, I am serious about making my point. And I'm not going to rest until I do. And one thing in my favour is that I'm not an intellectual mediocrity. I know what I'm supposed to do. My objectives are clear. I make it clear to everyone I speak to. Their problem is that they can't take it, and they have to pretend that I never said what I said or said something else. So what is this moral problem of Westerners? I'm saying it is their inability to submit to truth, logic, and morality. And it's not just their ruling classes, it is those who complain of being victims of the ruling classes. Because the whole point of what I'm trying to do is that once you get the right people in charge, then all the obvious problems will be solved. But if you remain a matriarchy, then you will basically be saying that you want to remain ill, you want to remain a matriarchy suffering from amnesia and dementia and motor neuron disease. And motor neuron disease is just the inability to do anything that your body is supposed to do. In the final stages of motor neuron disease, you won't even be able to blink or swallow. So you might think all kinds of things, but you just won't be able to follow through with it. You might think, oh, the building I'm in is burning down. It would be nice to walk down the fire escape. But I won't, I can't, or I refuse to consider that possibility. And of course, this is all destroyed by the feminization and infantilization of men, because the men will be blaming feminists, they'll be blaming women, they'll be blaming Jews. It's somebody else. Mistakes were made, but not by me. And they will be so womanish and effeminate that they're not going to do anything unless success is absolutely guaranteed. And this strategy might work for women, but not for men, who will be despised for their effeminacy. Because actually I know that a lot of people would support me if they knew that what I'm doing has guaranteed success. And they won't support me just because they don't think it's likely. And obviously it's not likely if they're not going to support me. And, sadly, they can't even ask themselves the right questions because, most of them they have addiction issues, a drink problem, taking psychotropic drugs that kind of kills their ability to reason through any problem of theirs. And then finally, when they have some sort of inkling about what I'm trying to say, they won't engage. It's not that they're going to pick a fight or anything. They'll even be friendly, but they won't engage on those issues. So I'm dealing with, not only political problems, I'm dealing with moral problems and psychological problems and the mental health issues of, the entire West, basically. So obviously I would have to appeal to a higher authority than the government, don't I? But I believe in the power of invocation. So I think sorcerers invoke spirits because obviously you have to call on them to assist you, right? You have to call on them. Otherwise, why would they? Why would they do anything for you if you don't address them, acknowledge their existence, and ask for assistance? So what I must be doing is invoking the support and assistance of the hypothetical supreme authority. And this he can do subtly by changing the minds of a few key people. Unfortunately, such is the state of anti-Semitism that there are people who reject the Abrahamic God and all the Abrahamic religions because they hate Jews so much. This is very sad, but I believe that this attitude is based on, well, envy and pride. And the sooner that this reluctance to acknowledge the usefulness of the Abrahamic God, it can be attributed to one's own defects of character, of envy and pride, then I think the way will be clear for the right course of action that is dependent on a few key people that I have already identified. So let us pray that the right force will assert the necessary pressure to get the key people that I've identified to do the right thing. And it won't be a miracle or anything like that. It can be attributed to, well, a change of mind. A bit like a flip of the switch. Instead of no, the answer becomes yes. And really that's all that is required. I don't require miracles. Merely submission to truth, logic and morality by the key people that I have identified. I'll read the chat now. Oh, Stephen James says a mantra. Let me. That's a great idea. Okay, I see Joe is here. I have lots of things to say with Joe. He's denied that he ever spoke highly of me. Okay, Aaron Amihud asks, why is Allah not with you, secular Quranism? Well, I don't think he's not with me. He's, just waiting for the right moment. Things have to be, I have to identify the causes and identify the right people. And I have to get them to do the right thing. And if they don't, well, then I'll have to call upon his assistance. But I also have to present the case to them in a way that they will find persuasive. And I think I have every hope of doing so. I also want to point out, I remember chapter 8. verse 65 and 66. Let me just check if I got it right. To give you all hope. Because it's a very hopeful verse. Because I know a lot of people think, oh, it's hopeless, all we can do is wait for death now, and crap like that. Yes, I was right. So, it says here, O prophet, urge the believers to battle. If there are among you 20 who are steadfast, they will overcome 200. And if there are among you 100 who are steadfast, they will overcome 1,000 of those who have disbelieved, because they are a people who do not understand. So this verse is addressed to Muhammad when he was leading his men, and I think he was on his way to Medina or something. There were a few other battles. But anyway, the point is that quite often the Muslims would find themselves outnumbered horribly. And so there was this verse saying, if there are 20 of you, you will overcome 200. Which is a pretty good ratio, right? And if there are 100 of you, you will overcome 1,000. That's kind of 1 to 10, right? It's 1 to 10. Which is pretty good. And the next verse. Chapter 8, verse 66. Now Allah has lightened the hardship for you, and He knows that among you is weakness. So if there are from you 100 who are steadfast, they will overcome 200. It's still pretty good. 1 to 2. And if there are among you 1,000, they will overcome 2,000 by permission of Allah, and Allah is with the steadfast. So if you're strong and confident, you can overcome 10 times the number of you. And if you're already a little weak, you can still overcome people who are twice as many as you. So that's pretty good going. I'll give you the link in the chat. Why can't the Muslims win one war against the Jews? Aaron Armihood asks. Well, it will have to be this war will not be a military war, it will be an ideological war. And I've already given you the battle plans. I've just told you the battle plans about how Muslims are going to get Jews to say, well, if we really do believe in what we say we believe in, then Islam would be the best option for us to escape the terrible punishments that we have so far accrued in our Jewish lives. So any Jewish citizen in a Western nation that is part of Christendom has already accrued one death penalty, because it is death for Jews who have become citizens of a city that has gone astray. Nidachat. You're already guilty, and there's no way of getting out of it unless you convert to Islam, right? Because Islam is the only other religion that is approved by God. Yes? There's no other. He doesn't approve of Christianity, he doesn't approve of Hinduism, he doesn't approve of Buddhism. He only approves of religions attached to scripture believed to have come from him. So it's either Judaism or Islam, and obviously Judaism is so hard that most Jews don't follow it now. But Islam is still practical, still practicable. That's why we have 6 theocracies in the world based on the Quran. So there's a difference. And as for Christianity, well, it's over and out for Christianity because it's a weakest link. It's a weakest link because liberalism has superseded and replaced Christianity centuries ago, and has in fact become kaput. Liberalism, which replaced Christianity, is now kaput. Aaron Amihud, who isn't really that well versed in Judaism, because he didn't grow up in an Orthodox family. His mother was Reform, I believe. The Torah doesn't say anything about the afterlife. It was Maimonides with the 13 principles of Judaism that states what Jews are required to believe in, and obviously Aaron doesn't know anything about that. Everyone must get stoned. Stephen James asks, can't you tart up secular Quranism with some Oriental mysticism or at least some cool chanting? Okay, I'll have a think about that. Maybe some, musical subscriber might like to help me with that. I believe in secular moral and vegetabilism. And Joe's now accusing me of being an Islamophobe because I won't convert to Islam. No, not at all. I'm not Islamophobic. You are. Because you won't consider the only rational and moral choice of a moral system, that is to replace your 2 broken ones. It's like you tried Christianity, it's kaput. You tried liberalism, which is a secular political ideology, and it's now kaput. It's time to, try the other one that you've been avoiding all these centuries. Benny Hinn? Do you mean Benny Hill? I hope Claire says that to all the Muslims. Hey, what do you want me to say to all the Muslims at Speaker's Corner, Gary? Yeah, Joe keeps going on about these public corporal punishments in Malaysia. I have never seen them. He can't prove that any of these public canings are... Well, you can't prove that any of these canings were public. And I'm saying I've never seen it done in public. So there's always some place, right? I bet there's, some place, and it's... And only Muslims are invited, all right? That's why I've never seen it. Because if it were going on, I'd like to have a look, right? Oh, Dinah's here. Cool mantra to chant. I'll have a think about that. I do have a few musical contacts. Maybe they can write a song about it or something. In fact, I remember Jay writing a song about it. few years ago. I can't find it now, though. I had a route around it. I suppose I could ask him. I couldn't find it. Nice comments about Diana and me last time we were together. Well, we were certainly better than the women on Women's Hour on Academic Agents channel. All right. I have come to the end of the chat. Did you want to come on, Diana? I'll post the chat, the link in the chat in case you do. And then I won't forget to put my headphones on in case you do join us. I'll have a look at Telegram. I think I might have received a few messages. Join my Telegram group, people. Well, I have a few interesting people in Telegram. They don't have to agree with me, so, don't be shy. I'm not going to be mean to you just because you... Well, I might be mean to you, but I won't kick you out. Oh, good. Maybe I should get myself a coffee too. All right, I'm going to play you some music, and then I'll... Well, I get myself a coffee. Intermission.
hear me?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear. I hope everyone can too.
That's perfect. How are you?
I'm well, I'm well. I think I've got a few more new ideas.
Oh,
And yeah, I think, well, things are chugging along. I'm just trying to get the display thing right. Why are you bigger? Why am I bigger and you smaller? I don't want to be, I don't want it to be like that, it's
I
not
feel
intentional.
discriminated.
Pardon?
I said I feel discriminated by it.
I know, but I'm not. This isn't on purpose. I mean, I'm trying to get us to display.
No, and I was joking actually.
Okay. I don't know how else to do it, but
And I
it's not
don't think that
intentional.
you want to look like bigger next to me, that it's some kind of uh purpose. Oh, I'm not in top form today, by the way. I
Have you
don't
got
want to.
COVID?
Yeah, the full family. So, but it's okay. It's just like a flu, but we have been in quarantine, and it's kind of exhausting maybe. So yeah, it's good to be on here with you, and let's do something. Let's do some mind work.
Okay. Start working on me now, please, Diana.
Mm. I actually had a thought this morning, not this morning, just when I were in your chat, and somebody said, like, the problem we are having is that people like you are coming to our countries. Somebody said that about you in the chat. Mhm. So I thought, oh, I never really spoke to you about integration and successful integration. Is in your eyes, is there even something like successful integration? And if yes, what does it include? A part of language skills of the country you move to. What else is necessary? And can it work? And that kind of
Oh yeah,
ideas.
yeah. I mean, obviously it would be, great if people would just integrate, but there are reasons why they don't want to integrate. And if you look at it a bit more closely, you'll see why they don't want to integrate, and you wouldn't want to integrate if you don't think that the culture that you're in is good for you. If you think it's bad for you, why would you integrate into that? So obviously they think, their way is better. And then I guess, we, Westerners have to consider whether, there's anything to be, you know, anything to be concluded from that. And but I think it's basically patriarchy saying, no, we don't want to become matriarchy. We don't want, women to tell men what to do. We don't want women to destroy, Western civilization. We don't, just want to. We don't want to be a part of this thing that goes against the principles of our religion, which once upon a time Westerners used to have when they supported the patriarchy.
Yeah, but when you say they and we and all that, I mean, you did immigrate to a Western country, to a Christian country, and you did even get a step further and created a new idea for our future, right?
Yes.
Without even really talking to us about it. It's just an idea.
I've been talking to you guys since 2009. You don't like it. I know you don't like it.
Yeah, but you can't give up on that idea because you think it's brilliant, right?
Yes, and I can't get
Yeah.
yeah, because of the best reasons I've got is we don't like it, we don't wanna, you can't make us, and now the latest one, after all these years, is it ain't British, and it's like, well, Christianity wasn't British to begin with, but you chose it anyway because it was the best thing going round. It really
Oh,
was the
you.
best thing going round. And I'm saying, well, Christianity is kaput. You tried your secular political ideology, and that's gone. It stopped working, and now you have to try, the thing that you've been avoiding all these centuries.
So normally, when people create a theory and they test it out there and it fails in a way, yeah, they give up on the theory, create a completely new one, or they change the theory a little bit and go out there again and try it again. So, I mean, I know you have worked on your theory, but in a way, it's still the same one, right? But
Yeah, it's the same one because the reason given for the rejection of my theory are, in my view,
Oh,
unsound and invalid.
oh, so that's not good enough for you. So the reasoning from the people which discuss it for you, which obviously maybe know 20% of what you know about your own theory, is not good enough for you to say, okay, I drop it.
Yeah, because you know it's
Mm.
like you know you have to deal with children. They're not rational. You know, sometimes you say let's go out for the day, and they don't want to go. And you know you have to take them, and you take them, and then they finally have a good time, and they don't want to come back. So you know they don't know what they want. So if you're in a position of leadership over people who are not as educated or wise, then you have to ignore their preferences because they don't know their own mind because they're stupid, they're uneducated, they're confused, neurotic,
Yeah, but
Islamophobic,
Claire, you are far
anti-Semitic,
too you are
racist.
far too intelligent to only look at it one-sided and point at the people which reject your theory. I mean, it
I do
could be
talk
the
to them.
theory as well, right? It could be that this just doesn't fit for our societies here in the West. It could be. It can be that you are right, and it's just that we aren't on the right level yet to understand how good your theory would be in the future for our future. But it could also be the theory itself.
Yes, I have seen, these points are constantly repeated to me. So,
Mm-hmm.
so my most recent discussion is that, the British people aren't ready for it yet. And my response is, well, make them ready for it. Prepare them to be ready for it. And it's only by having a dialogue and discussing it in channels bigger than my own that you get this proper national conversation that I've been that I want this. It can be an international conversation, it can be even a global conversation about what is wrong with globo homo, what is cause the problems of neoliberalism, why are westerners themselves rejecting neoliberalism. It's because of immigration, they can't stand it anymore. And that's also your position, Diana. You're only lurking around these circles because you kind of think, well, I don't like this immigration thing that the political establishment of Germany is completely ignoring. They're ignoring it by demonizing people who complain about it as racist and whatever. And you don't feel racist, you don't feel anti-Semitic, you just feel uneasy about it, and they won't answer your questions.
Yeah, I need to add some things to that because I don't feel that you 100% put it the way I really feel it. So it's not that I'm against immigration. I just think that when there is too
It's
much
too much.
yeah, but too much from certain countries
Yeah.
or cultures which are too far away from our own cultures, and it's too many too fast.
Yes, I can
So
understand. You don't even need
so
to
it's
explain.
just for the full society had to adapt to it,
It's
and it's
scary.
for them and for us, right? And I believe immigration can diversity can be beautiful. I got laughed at for that before, but I really think that um uh, but it has to be done in a certain way, and it needs to be slower and a certain like certain people, right? When it comes to integration and education and culture. And yes, I do worry a little bit about the way it gets done in our countries when it comes to speed and the kind of people which are coming. So,
Understandably so. I mean, I'm not one of those people who pretend that, people don't, I don't understand why people are angry. Because I actually know a lot of non white people who are concerned about it as well. It's not just a white person thing. It's just that the media pretend it's only white people being racist, but a lot of non-white people are also asking themselves, what's happening? Why are they doing this to themselves? Have they gone mad? And I'm talking about my parents, you
yeah,
know?
but to me, it has nothing to do with color, and it has not really something to do with religion, but it does a little bit. If I mean, you can pick the religion you like, but the religion in a society where they come from, the culture they come from, if it's just too far away from ours, there are conflicts on both sides, right? We
Of
don't
course.
understand them, they don't understand us. We think they are doing things wrong, they think we are doing things wrong. So who's in the right? Who has to be tolerant and respectful? And how much can you actually, take from both sides?
Exactly. So we are talking about the kind of social and moral hierarchy of the West. Whose preferences are the most important? Because you're saying, well, they've just come off the boat. How dare they, walk around in my country as if they own it, telling us what to do and stuff. I totally get your point. So it's like, well, who gets to say what? I'm saying, if you have patriarchy, it's like, okay, women are just basically less racist than men because men are just, who are they? How dare they? And they, men instinctively understand that immigration threatens their interest more than it threatens female interests. And because of this overarching culture, totalitarian hegemony of feminism, people can't think like that. It's that, men do have a slightly different way of looking at things, and, they like or dislike something based on the fact that they are men, and women, like and dislike certain ideas because of they are women. But feminism makes us discount all this and pretend we're all the same.
I think you have a point there. I thought about that a little bit because Daniel said that to me when I was on his panel and we had a little talk. He said, "Oh, you're a woman. That's why you talk so nicely about it, And I thought about that and thought, well, is it my real opinion I'm sharing here, or do I pick my words just differently because of the gender and the role I have by being a woman in society, right?" And of course, there are plenty of differences between a man and a woman. And I have heard men here in Germany, which all vote AfD actually, speaking very blank about and straight up about what they think. Yeah, and they want them out there. That's just what they say. I want all the foreigners out of my country. This country belongs to Germans, and I want them out of this country. That's how they say it, right? Not on the streets. They say that when they sit down with you. And they don't have a problem to say that. So it's not all of them, obviously, but it is people I know.
Yeah, because they preferred Germany before they all arrived. I mean, understandably, So we have to, think of what went wrong. Why did it happen like that? It's not just happening in Germany, is it? It's happening across, well, non-EU countries. In Australasia, not part of the EU. In America, not part of the EU.
Yeah.
You have the same policies because, people talk about, global government. It's like, yeah, we already had global government before you began to complain about it, because global government means global liberal democracy, which means global feminism, and feminism is something to do with, how people behave towards each other, towards members of the opposite sex. Because of really the price of sex, I would say. We're back to the marriage thing, which I know you disagree with me
subject,
about.
Right? It's all about sex.
Yes, it is about sex. That's what, that's my entire thesis. The price of sex has to be just right or everything will go wrong. And patriarchy is saying, well, nobody should be having sex with somebody they're not married to. And only men and women can marry each other, and that's it. That's nice and simple. And if we stick to that rule, we'll be okay. But and basically, fornication is the gateway sexual offence that has let all the others in. And what the government is doing now, and the government is a matriarch, is it's trying to distract us from getting angry. So that's why it's saying, oh, this kind of sex is okay, and that kind of sex is okay. Have fun, with yourselves, people. Don't have a revolution, will you? And the sex will, distract us from getting really angry, and then they push drugs. It's legal now, it's okay to smoke cannabis and take all that kinds of drugs, because they want us to, well, not be aware of what they're doing, or not care. And
You
so
see, and
the
I
horror
thought,
of
I
what is
think,
happening in the West is actually worse than the British selling opium to the Chinese to get them hooked. Well, at least the British were doing it to other people, but now Western governments are doing it to their own people.
you know, back to the subject for 1 second. I was just thinking, being a prostitute, I think prostitutes have been around forever, like forever. And prostitutes in Germany now are all health insured. It's like, it's a job.
Yes.
Being a prostitute, you pay taxes, you are health insured, and it's a job.
Yes,
We
I
still,
agree with it.
yeah, me too. We still have the sex trafficking, and people or women get trafficked into the country. They take their passport away and they work on the black market.
Yeah.
But it is less now because prostitutes have another status now in society. It's still not, I don't think, I don't know a prostitute, but I still think it's not a job where you go, oh yeah, I'm a prostitute or I'm a porn star. It's still not something you walk around with and be proud of, I think. But when it comes to the health insurance and tax paying, and you just have a job. So yes, people, men and women, go and see prostitutes. I like it better if it's public and visible, right?
Because
And
it protects the workers, because obviously the streetwalker need to be protected from the curb crawler.
yes, it's safer for the women, it's safer for everybody, and it's just what we have in society. People, or men, mainly men, don't have access to a woman, but they still have their needs, because we are animals, all of us, in a way.
Do you
Um,
know that in the Old Testament a prostitute actually married a prophet of God? Do you know that story?
no, I'm not. No, I
Okay,
don't.
well, anyway, Joshua married a prostitute, Rahab, the one who betrayed her city, and her city was Jericho. Maybe you heard of Jericho, the walls of Jericho falling down, or not?
I,
No,
no,
that's a
no. Don't
blank.
ask me stuff about the Bible. But what is the moral of that story? How did it end? What was the lecture?
Well, it's just part of the Jews on their way to the promised land, and Joshua, actually, he didn't get to the promised land in his lifetime, but anyway, he led the people for a bit, and one of his adventures was Jericho, because they took, they basically besieged Jericho. I think they went around it, however many times, and the walls just basically collapsed. But they did so with the assistance of a prostitute called Rahab, who hid, I think, two Jewish spies in her building, and she said, when you take the city, you'll spare me, won't you? And they did spare her, and in the end she married Joshua. So that's a story of
That's the story.
I'm
Okay.
saying the Bible doesn't necessarily say, oh, you're a prostitute, you're just damned forever and you'll never make good, because she, in
Mm,
that story, she married Joshua.
okay. Nice love story, that. Yeah. So if we go back to the immigration, right, and we look at, for example, yourself, um, would you say you are an example of successful immigration from the viewpoint of an English person?
Yeah, I think I mean, I don't think people will just go, oh, look at her, she's being so weird. Most of my friends are English and white. They don't like my idea, but then this idea is unique to me, and it was only conceived of in order to solve your problems. And I'm not forcing it on you. I can't force it on you. You can either consider it properly and say, well, have we got anything better? Is the problem that Claire says really the problem, or is it something else? So I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I'm doing it because I'm a concerned citizen. I see that you don't seem to be aware of what has caused all this. You're just saying it's only immigration, and I'm saying, yeah, immigration is annoying, but it's only a symptom. What you need to deal with is the disease, and the disease is feminism. And because feminism is now your sacred cow, nobody can address that problem, because everybody sort of compromise their own behavior, because a lot of men want the price of sex to be, well, conveniently low. A lot of women have basically been the foot soldiers of feminism. you know
So I'm the disease. I'm more the disease as a modern Western woman than a person who comes from another country and is not happy with our culture, really, and wants to
no,
change it.
I wouldn't put it in such an unpleasant way, but I mean, every now and then people can get the wrong idea and they can do the wrong thing. That if they were thinking about it properly, it's like, well, Christianity, if we were taking it seriously, would make us know not to do it. But because you stopped believing in it a long time ago, you just treated it like nothing. Like, well, Christianity's over, we're now liberal. And then you realize that liberalism came out of nowhere, really. Its ideas cannot be agreed on, its principles cannot be agreed on, because people just add everything they want onto liberalism, without thinking it through properly. I mean, it's completely stupid that conservatism in the UK is linked to gay marriage, because David Cameron, who was a Conservative Prime Minister, legalised gay marriage, and when he was Prime Minister.
Yeah, what I'm just thinking is, I mean, I like to talk to you, Claire, and I can absolutely respect you on everything. But if I imagine that your idea would have like loads of fans and you would get, let's say, a political strength in any shape or form, and a transformation in society would slowly happen and it would go towards your direction, then I wouldn't be happy with that, right?
No, because but the thing is, you want everything to stay the same, but everything to be different. You want, you understand the aspirations of German men in wanting to reverse immigration, but how? And you are also concerned about immigration. So how are you going to solve your problem if you don't accept that certain ways of Western thinking have been the cause of its own problems?
I mean, there's there has been, and it's ongoing, a change in that. I mean, there are always changes. A society is always developing, and some developments I worry about. It's not only immigration, as I said, and I don't see that problem isolated. Actually, Germany is has the second oldest citizens in the world. Only Japan has older people than Germany. And I think a lot of Western countries suffer from
an aging population.
The aging population, the demographics.
Not enough babies to do the work required.
Exactly, the knowledge management, right? If you don't have enough babies, and the managers, the old senior managers retire, and there's not enough people coming into the companies and all, or study at universities, and it's most females studying at universities anyway, and it's all connected.
Yes.
So it's out of balance. When you look at it. I can't expect to have a good pension when I retire if I'm not prepared to produce babies, which will pay for my pension, right?
Yeah, and so, it needs to be pointed out to these people complaining about immigration what they have to do. But unfortunately, a lot of these leaders of these anti immigration political parties are, unscrupulous, and they know that these people don't want to get married, so they just blame the Jews. That's what they do. It's like, we never liked them. Why don't we just blame everything on them? You
But
know?
that's what I said to Daniel. I said, shouldn't a nationalist or ethnocentric person like him produce loads of babies? Like, I mean,
He can't
hello.
find a woman to marry him because he's so beta. He can't express himself properly. He can't control his emotions. I mean, what rational woman would want to marry him if unless he's filthy rich?
But you know what I'm saying, right? If you worry about your own nation, produce loads of babies. But don't sit there and complain about immigration if you're not prepared to produce babies. And I wouldn't want to have more than two, because I am this kind of modern Western woman who wants to have a life too. And I don't want to raise babies every 2 years,
Yeah, yeah,
I
but it's up
don't
to the
want.
government to give men and women. You can't produce babies on your own. You got to bring them up properly. That is really the problem. The problem of parenting and making sure that the next generation more or less shares the same values as the previous generation, or every subsequent generation will regard the previous generation as heretics or subversives or something, right?
Yeah, but if you say bring them up properly or raise them properly, the definition here means push them through education, so they have good marks and go to university and have good jobs. And it's all about money and education here. I don't know. I think the same in England, right?
Yeah, but the thing is, moral education is non-existent because the morals, people don't even talk about having a moral system. How should we treat each other? How should we, these questions are not really answered properly. And the thing
Did
is,
I, did I actually? Yeah, sorry. Go on.
I'm just saying the moral education is important, but if you haven't got a moral system that you officially believe in, then you can't have any moral education. And that explains why our politicians are so corrupt. It's like they just want to talk down to us and pretend that they care about us, and we can't answer, we can't ask them questions. And if we try, we are demonized for being, whatever label they want to stick on us.
Yeah, but what I believe about politicians is if you want to have a career, a real career as a politician, and you maybe have very good intentions and you start your job, you do realize very quickly that you have to end up in somebody's pockets to get support and to actually have your career. So then at one stage, you have to decide, do I want to have that career or do I stick to my principles? If you stick to your principles, which maybe means that you don't agree with the powerful people around you, well, you won't have a career, right?
So the
It,
system is wrong.
yeah,
Because I think any country, I mean,
it's in any country like that. Of course it is.
well, only in countries that practice representative democracy. So, in China, it's like, I think we can assume that whether they do it right or not, the Chinese want to promote their own national interest. So they're not going to do something silly because, some corporate donor wants them to do something stupid and has bribed them, because China is very firm about, well, Jack Ma, you're getting a bit too big for your boots. We're going to have a word with you and we want you to pipe down. And, China will never be subservient to its corporate interests. While America, it's all about that. It's like, we're going to have these elections that last for a whole year, and it's going to cost a lot of money, and we have to go cap in hand to our donors. And if we win, our donors will want us to do things that they want us to do. And that's how, America came to be dominated by corporate America with all these powerful companies that the government itself is afraid of. The politicians are afraid of these social media platforms because they saw how they, deplatformed a sitting American president. because
Yeah,
they
but
are the
I don't know
first
if China is
estate.
the best example here. If as a Chinese politician, if you say something the leader don't like, you end up dead or in a work camp for 40 years. So
Well, okay, that's you know,
yeah, your career
but
is
but
over.
but as far as China is concerned, it's doing reasonably well, because well we know it's doing quite well because that's why the West is so upset about it. It doesn't like Huawei because it suddenly realised that Huawei phones are better than Apple phones
Oh, it's China
and
is the third
iPhones.
strongest economy in the world. Of course, they're doing well.
Yeah.
It's they don't have human rights or anything.
Yeah,
So
yeah, but are we talking in terms of technology and basically the British were going to get the Chinese to build the high speed link between the north and south of England. So I'm talking merely in technological terms, and because China doesn't have elections, it can basically do what they think is in the Chinese national interest. Well, nobody in the West even thinks like that. They don't care about the national interest. Do they ever talk about it in your country? No, it's all about wokeness and caring, sharing, equal. It's like, it's all nonsense anyway. You can't be equal. Nobody can be equal. You,
yeah,
you
and
can only be treated fairly.
what you just described is, in my opinion, the reason why the West worldwide is just losing power, because you have countries like Russia and China which just do what's good for them, and they don't care about the rest. They have their own interests and they push their own interests, and they are doing it very, very cleverly.
Yes,
I
and
mean,
they have a different
tell me a
style of government
country.
that you refuse to consider because you're so proud of your liberal democracy. And I'm saying that is what is destroying you. You suddenly have this sacred cow that liberal democracy is like God or something. And I'm saying
Yeah,
it's
but
not. It's
in a
just a
in a
a
way.
bad idea that you should recognize as a bad idea. But I know I'm talking about slaying your sacred cow.
Yeah, but you also talk about morals. And if you only care about your own interests, and you don't, and the stronger you get, the more arrogant you get, and the more selfish you get, like perspective worldwide as a country now, um, that can end up very bad,
Yes,
right? If we wanna,
Islam has
if we,
has rules for international relations. I mean, it does actually have rules for that.
hmm you see, and if we go back to successful immigration, I mean, there are cases of successful immigration, loads. Um, but it's about, if they have lived for 20 years in a country like Iraq, Syria, whatever it is, um, they are not happy with the way we live here. They can't. So it's maybe the next generation or the fourth generation or the fifth generation.
A
I
lot
don't
of
know.
white people who've never been to any Muslim country are not happy with the way their country is being run. I mean, forget the immigrants, which is why there is what they fear is white people kind of thinking Islam is the answer. That would be so powerful, and of course that is the answer. That would be the only way to restore the patriarchy. I know you don't want to do that, but it's that combination that would change everything. Because even now there's this idea of I think it's called Islamogram. The expert political observers are saying, "Ooh, there's something scary coming up." He's these Muslims, and they're using memes like Graper memes, and they're incorporating it and doing it like these. I don't know, and they're saying, "Ooh, but it's Salafist and scary and whatever," and they are now anticipating the direction that further opposition to the matriarchy is going to come, because eventually people are going to get it that the reason why Western man is so weak is because he doesn't have a religion that supports marriage and the family, because everything the government does is undermining the idea of people getting married, the idea of people staying together, the idea of people having legitimate children.
So a very big difference between you and me is that you believe without religion there can't be morals and ethics, and I just totally, in my belief system, disagree with that.
Well,
Um, And that is like, when we start at the basement, that's where we disagree already.
Well,
And I
we
just
need
want,
to define morality because that's what we had this conversation the last time,
we have,
didn't we?
yes, we did. And I don't know why a religion is necessary to know which kind of behavior is necessary to um, act morally correctly, right? Oh, before I forget that, I wanted to tell you, I don't know if I told you last time, it's not that long ago that we spoke. Um, my kid, my kids, both of them are imprisoned, right? I told you that before. Did I tell you that they got their half yearly report 2 weeks ago, and my 9-year-old one turned around to me and said, don't have my God, expectations when it comes to the religion. I said, what do you mean? Oh, it's so boring, Mom. And I said, what? It's so easy to get an A in religion. Come on. And he said, no, expect a C or a D. And I'm like, what? Okay. So he got a C. And I said, look, you could stop going to the religion lessons and I can book you in ethic lessons. And he said, what is that? So I talked to him about it, explained to him what it is. And he said, okay, let's try it out. And okay, he's at home this week because of Corona. But he has been in them lessons and he loves it. And they talked about friendship. They are only 9 years old. So what the meaning of friendship, what does it mean to be a good friend, which kind of character do you need to have, what kind of behavior comes with a good friend, what is important, and then, okay, you need to start somewhere. So they are only 9 years old. And next year they will start with practical philosophy, which I like, actually. I think that's good. Every kid should have that. So now he has stopped his religion lessons and is doing that now instead. What
Right.
do you think?
Well,
That,
I mean that's all very well. I mean, there's a lot of there's an element about socializing children in saying yes, we do unto others as we would have others do unto you, and all these broad principles of human behavior that is kind of universal. You give me something, I'll give you something back. The principle of reciprocity, and all that. But I'm saying that in order to give your people a sense of identity, the moral system has to, be a formal one that people can instantly think, oh, this is Christian, this is Jewish, this is whatever. Because otherwise, what you have is whatever the politicians say you must have, and eventually we get tired of our politicians. They die, their ideas are forgotten about, and new ones are replaced the old ones, right? That is how wokeism has replaced liberalism, and wokeism is its intersectionality.
so if you put it down, you need laws, like moral laws, or laws which back up the morality which you want to have in a society. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, and they have to be distinct. They have to be like it's this A B C D E, not oh just any rule. It's got to be something that the child can go, mum and dad, how was it in your day? Did you follow the same rules? Because we respect things that have been going on for a long time, right? We just happen to, we just instinctively respect a law that we know has been enforced for hundreds of years, and then if it just, popped up yesterday.
yeah, but if you, for example, go back to, okay, you can't have sex before you get married. Is that something you would, for example, put out there as a law?
I would first, um, I think it would be too much for Westerners to do. So I would say, if you become an unmarried parent, then that would be, you know, how that would be a sexual offence rather than do anything before that. Because it just gives you a bit of wiggle room for maneuver. So you can have it for premarital sex provided you don't get pregnant. So be careful. You know,
And if you get pregnant, you need to marry that man.
Yeah,
or the
or have
man
an
needs to marry
abortion,
a woman.
or you need to do something unpleasant.
Also, abortion would be allowed in your world.
Yeah, but
Oh,
I'm not going to, I'm not going to stop it. I mean, eventually it will be looked on with greater horror, but I have no, plans or intention of banning
that
abortion.
surprises me. That I didn't. Why didn't I expect that you would agree with abortion?
Because there's actually nothing in the Quran or the Bible that says you can't, you know, you can't you can't do it. It doesn't say that. Okay, the Quran has a few verses saying, don't kill your children if they're the wrong sex, or or in fear of poverty. But children, implies something that's already out of the mother.
Okay.
I am
Okay.
interpreting these verses literally.
Okay. So if two 15-year-old or 16-year-olds have sex and they get pregnant, they could go and get an abortion done, or they keep the kid and get married.
Or they can put it up for adoption. Yes.
Mm, yeah. So, but they couldn't keep the kid. It's not that they go, right, we have been together for 2 weeks. We did have sex, and now I'm pregnant, and I don't want to, get rid of the baby. So I will keep it, but I don't want to marry that man because I've already learned that I don't love him and that he can't be the man of my future. That's not possible then.
Well, it wouldn't be much fun for the mother or the kid. And I think in the olden days they would understand the reason. They wouldn't say, well, I'm going to keep the kid anyway, because social disapproval would be so
Yeah.
strong, and they would
Okay.
actually be
Yeah.
they're killing their chances of getting
Yeah.
married ever.
So which is acceptable now in our society wouldn't be acceptable then. You can be a single mom in our society and go, right, he was abusive, he was an alcoholic, or whatever he was. I left him, he cheated on me, he broke my heart, he beat me up, I didn't want to be with him anymore. But I'm a single mom now and I'm fine. That wouldn't be acceptable.
No. It would be, you shouldn't have had sex with him. You should have been more careful. You're a slut. Blah da 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 da. Yeah.
Did I ever tell you that my brother agrees with you on the fact that he thinks that the Western women are destroying the West because we didn't stick to the role which was actually made for us in the societies?
I wouldn't blame women, or exclusively. I think a lot of people think I do blame men, but it's like if men weren't so easily seduced by cheap sex, they would have said, no, this is wrong, Christian principles, blah blah blah. But they forgot too, and they allowed it. So they can't really blame women because they allowed it. So
But
I'm
can
all
you
for
really
people to,
blame
to, to
them?
just sort of
Because
take the blame, so there's no nastiness of blaming the women or whatever. It's like, we did wrong, we're going to do better from now on.
But don't forget that the women raise the kids. So me being this in your I don't see myself as a feminist, but in your eyes I am, and I'm fine with that. But I do raise my kids as and I'm a feminist, so of course I maybe raise them differently than my grandmother raised my mom, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was different times. She stayed at no, even my grandma worked, by the way, but you know what I'm saying. So the role of the women have dramatically changed over the last 3-4 generations in the Western countries.
Mm-hmm.
So it's in a way the mother's fault if we raise so-called, you call them weak Western men, right?
Well, I mean, women were pressurized into having sex. In the 70s, the men would say, well, why can't you have sex? I don't want to get pregnant. Well, go on the pill then. All these bargains would be, made. And because there was a pill, women were just expected to be more promiscuous, and it became part of the culture to become promiscuous. And people would just do these things without even thinking about it, because they no longer believed in all the Christian prohibitions against that kind of behavior, because maybe they never believed in it, and maybe Christianity became kaput the moment European nations said, well, we're not going to burn heretics at the stake anymore. We're not going to, you know, treat unmarried parents as sex offenders. You know, it's like all these things used to prevail in European society a few generations ago,
But I
right?
don't know if this, I don't, statistically, or scientists say that men do think about sex much more every day than women do, but women do as well. And it's this, maybe this animalistic thing in us still. But I don't think men have brains as well. It's not that they only that this is all they stand for. That it's not all they think about. It's just a thing, right?
Well, okay, you know, we're not men. You know, in that we don't have, you know, sex organs that are on the outside of us. And maybe the fact that, you know, their sex organs are outside their body, you know, makes their urges more urgent, shall we say. You know, and we can think, oh, but we, you know, we wouldn't do this sort of thing. But then we're women. We have, maybe we're just not so susceptible to these urges that they have. And maybe we kind of need men to want sex from us so that we can bargain with them. You know, imagine if all the men were gay. I mean, it's like, oh, it would be so difficult to get them to do
But that
anything,
would
right?
be
Because
if
we
it's
can't even offer them sex.
but if it's an animalistic thing in men, then it has nothing to do with Western men or Muslims or Christians or whatever. Then it has to do with men, right? And to reduce men, that's how you that is the way a woman makes men do what they want a man to do. That's like really very, I think, very reduced thinking. I just don't believe that men. There are some men out there which are easy to manipulate by women. I agree on that. And some women really know well how to do that as well. But I don't think that's how the normal man female relationships in this world or in the Western world work. Men do have a brain, they do think, and they are able to, right?
Well, but sometimes, I mean, you've heard, I don't know if you heard in Germany that the expression is used about a man's brain falling out once he is in lust with a woman. That he does all kinds of, you know, silly things because he's, you know, in love with a woman.
So there's two different things. One is a sex drive, and the other one is being in love. And being in love, if you look at scientifically again, you can look that up in the internet. Being in love does something to the brain, and it's even visible. And scientists say they looked at the brain and said it's similar to cocaine use. So if somebody is in love, something is really changing in the brain. So, for example, the senior business CEO of a company, when he's freshly in love, he shouldn't make big decisions because it's like
It's like being drunk,
right?
right? It's like being intoxicated.
Women being in love is like being on a drug.
Yeah.
Scientifically, it does something to the brain. It's just, you know, it's chemistry. That's what it is. Being in love is chemistry. So and the other thing is the sex drive. Like we say, oh, a man is thinking with his third leg. Yeah.
With his sex organ. Yeah.
Yes, that's an expression we have. So I've said that loads to men. Oh, come on, you're thinking with your third leg here, right? When they find a woman attractive and but that woman is just not really relationship material. But the man is not seeing that right now because he's only seeing or looking at the woman with the third leg, right? Or the third leg has taken over and wants some business now. So yes, that happens. But it's not that a man walks through the world all day long and that is all he thinks with. I'm sorry, Claire, but that is, you can't reduce, I cannot even believe that I stand up here for the man, but to reduce men to that, you can say that as a joke and we can joke about that, but not seriously.
Cherchez la femme. Have you come across
Pardon?
that expression? Cherchez la femme. seek the woman. It's a French expression for if something is happening with a man, if he's behaving in a peculiar way, it's it's because of a woman. Have you heard that expression? Maybe not.
I haven't heard that expression, but I understand that. But it can be the other way around as well. I mean, have you been crazy in love, and have
Oh,
you?
sure.
Yeah. So that does change us, right? We look at the world different. We look like everywhere are flowers and everything is shiny and life is great and
It's
we
like
are
being on
giggling.
drugs.
It's what it is scientifically. It's chemistry working in our bodies and making us feel good. I mean, sorry, but evolution needs to do something to make us go for
To
what we
make
are
us
made
have
for.
children.
Yes, exactly. So there must be some, there's this short-term benefit. You talked about that the other day. That's the orgasm. And the love is the other thing. So, yeah, I don't know what to say. I mean, I respect men and I love to have conversations with men because they think so differently to women. And I
Oh,
feel
you acknowledge that men and women do think differently. Great.
they 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 think differently, they feel differently, they
They
they have
see the
different
world
roles.
differently.
Yeah, I think so.
But right now in the West, the male preference is being completely ignored. It's marginalized, it's demonized, and it's not healthy and it's not fair. Because we need a gender balanced society where, each sex feels that their needs are being catered to, and it's not completely one sided, right? And
Yeah,
I
but
think
what is wrong with that? I mean, I'm not talking about cavemen. I don't want to be men, you know, which are cavemen. They don't need to be cavemen. They can be a gentleman and a caveman at the same time, in a way, if you know what I mean. They can keep their
yes.
manhood, but and men do have feelings as well. Of course they do. They get upset. They do feel sadness. They do feel stress. They do feel weak. It's just are they allowed to show that they are at the moment a little bit overwhelmed by life, or do they need to say, no, I'm a real man, I'm a caveman, give me an axe, I don't care if I'm overwhelmed or not, I'm not allowed to feel this way? Is that more
Deep down,
manly?
that's what we want them, because we want somebody stronger than us to look after us, and if they're showing us that they cry and crap like that, we won't respect them. I mean, there's always a way. I mean, people, they complain about women being hypergamous. It's like, yeah, we women, we know that we're weak, and that's why we want, somebody richer than us and stronger than us and cleverer than us, but who will still look after us. And if we, make unreasonable demands of men, they're just eventually, going to do it, and it will undermine their authority. And when they lose their authority, all kinds of shit happen, like what's happening now in the West.
Yeah, but um I think it is still like that. The man still has this need to look after the woman. It's not that they need to kill the bear outside of the cave, um, or bring the food home by shooting a rabbit. But they still do have their job as a man. I mean, they do still do the manly things, right?
But
The
but but
strong.
you've already said earlier, maybe 20 minutes ago, that more women are going to university, and therefore, well, if fewer men are going to university, they will be less authoritative and even more frightened to challenge the matriarchy. I know definitely that the more law students, female, law undergraduates, and now male undergraduates. So the women will control the interpretation, and that will be against male interests, and they'll be too scared, and nobody will want to marry them
Okay,
because.
but then, okay, it's just a number, and it's true. More women do enter university than men do, but we do have colleges as well, and that's a working class, and that's being a roofer, being, um, you know, being an electrician, being a gardener, being whatever, and the and when you look, for example, how many women study engineering, maths, and stuff like that, it's still 90% men.
But women
Which
don't need to do these things. They don't even like it. You know, and
you
it's like women have their own work to do, which you know, they kind of don't want to do now because they've been indoctrinated into thinking it's not worthwhile because it's not paid for and stuff. And it's like, yeah, a lot of social problems are caused by the lack of a responsible adult in the home. You know, the home that doesn't have an adult in when the kid comes in from school. So the kid will, I don't know, have underage sex, take drugs, watch porn, whatever. Yeah, again, that's what they do.
did you hear that on the radio show this morning, Claire?
No, no, I've known that a long
That-
time ago. I mean, people do say that a lot of lives are destroyed by you know, insufficient supervision over teenagers in their own home.
we call them kids key kids. So they
Latchkey
get,
children.
yeah, they get a key
Yeah.
because they are home. They need to open the door and they are home alone until one of the parents come home,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And the parents are happy when the kid, or it's a success when they can say, oh yeah, my kid warms up the food in the microwave, and then when I come home the kid has already done the homework perfectly, and when I came home it was reading a book. But reality is, well, I didn't cook, so I came home, the kid is hungry, homework isn't done, and the kid sat in front of the TV or the PlayStation for the 2 or 3 hours it was alone, right?
Mm.
So, yeah, I understand what you are saying there. And that is a problem. I remember I was on holiday a couple of years ago, and there was a family from Düsseldorf, and they were both consultors. They earned a lot of money, and she became a mom late with 40, and the kid was then, I don't know, 6 maybe. And she has deadlines, projects which need to be done, and she sometimes works from 7 in the morning till 7, 8, 9 in the night, and the husband the same thing. So I said, how do you do it? And she proudly told me that somebody picks the kid up at 4 o'clock and keeps the kid till 6, and then another person comes and takes over until the mom comes home. So that person, the babysitter, sometimes even puts the kid to bed.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, where she comes from, the circle she lives in, it's about the quality of these babysitters. I said, what do you mean? And she said, well, one speaks Chinese, so I make her speak Chinese to my kid all the time, which she finds brilliant, thinking the kid will learn Chinese from her. And the other one is like logopedy or like they have certain qualities and they think it's good for the development of the kid, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's how they excuse themselves from being a mom and a dad who are never there for a kid.
Mm-hmm.
By paying all that money for quality babysitters, which educate their kids until they put the kid to bed. So the parents come home, check if the kid is asleep, maybe kiss a kid, and then that's it. So they haven't interacted with the kid really at all because they leave the house very early as well.
Mm-hmm.
But the weekend, then it's weekend time. Wow. So, okay, you can do it that way. And maybe this kid will get sent to a private school, perfect education, and will, have a good job when it's older. But I would like to know what that kid will think or answer if you ask her, what do you think about the relationship you have to your parents? Is it close? Is it a close relationship? Do you remember your mom being there in all these key moments in your life growing up?
No, my mother worked.
No.
My mother worked.
Yes. My mom worked. We had loads of money. We flew. Okay, yes, they went on holiday like 3 times, 4 times a year, great places and all that. But that is 2 weeks here, 2 weeks there, 2 weeks there.
Mm-hmm.
But the daily life, but for that kid, it was normal, right? And I know the talk I had with her, it made her think. because she became a mom really late and the pregnancy was very difficult. And if I remember right, she even almost died when she had the baby. And so she's very happy to have that baby.
Mm-hmm.
And when we met, it was like I stepped down from my career and I had to make that hard decision. I told you before, right? I had to say no to a position which I took for 6 months and realized I can't do it that way. I can't have that position and be a mom or the mom I want to be. I just can't do it. And I was at that point, and she was, yeah, it made her think, because the people she's surrounded by, it's all these kind of career women and men, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the only people she knows. And the talks they have is about, oh, what kind of qualifications does your babysitter have? Right. So it's a little bit different, but it's what she shows.
Yeah.
But that's what you are on about, right?
Well, I mean, I know of a couple who said, oh, our child is picking up a really bad accent because of the childminder or the babysitter.
You see? So fire the babysitter and get a different babysitter with a different accent, and then that problem is gone until the next problem appears, right?
Yeah. So really, the mum has to do it to make the kid recognizably, like its parents. Yes.
Yeah.
To share the same values and to share something of the parents.
When I had that talk with her, I was thinking, why did you even get a kid then? But I didn't say that because it would hurt. She loves her kid, obviously, and she thinks she's doing all these things for the kid, right? But she's doing it all for herself in reality.
Yeah, they're not pets. Children are not pets.
Yes, exactly. So I didn't want to be rude, and I mean, I met her on holiday, right? So what's the point? But I know that I made her think. But she won't change. It's just she has always had a career. She wanted that kid and go back to work and have the career still, and that's how she does it. But I know she feels guilty. I know that, because it's just, yeah, a kid is not a pet, right?
No.
And she couldn't do that with if she would have like 3 or 4 kids. How many babies? I mean, that would mean probably work 12 hours a day or 20 hours a day to pay all these babysitters.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's a shame because your children are not really your own. Because they it's like if they fall over, they're upset. They run to the babysitter more than they would run to you. And many mothers have said, oh, I saw my kid hurt, and it just rushed past me to go to the babysitter because it didn't think of me as somebody they could go to with them about their problems.
That would break my heart. If that would happen to me, that would break my heart. Seriously, I couldn't live with that. If my kid would prefer a person I pay to look after my kids so I can do, my work, that would be the day I would change things.
Did you read Stephen James asking us to talk about marriage being one-sided? Is there anything you want to say something about before?
Well, I can't see chat in this Google. I can't see the chat in here.
Okay, I'll read it out to you. So
Okay.
Stephen James said, can you two talk about the thing I did 2 streams on, the black pill about marriage being a one-sided 100% risk, 0% reward rights proposition for men? So that's what he wants you to address. I think he already knows my view, which is that no-fault divorce should be abolished.
Yes, I have my thoughts on that. I will grab a new coffee and then I will answer that, okay?
Okay. Well, I think I've already answered his question that the most potent field of political activism for men who want to challenge the matriarchy is to campaign to abolish no-fault divorce and declare an official marriage strike and say, well, we're not going to marry any women until no fault, divorce is abolished. They could do that if they're capable of organising themselves in that way. I suspect that they can't, because they don't really care to marry a woman of their own race anyway, because they don't want to have children, legitimate or otherwise. So that is a sad bit of it all. It's like, yeah, I've told you all the things that you can do to get your country back and reassert male authority, but you're frankly not interested. You prefer to be, women with penis extensions.
I hope you didn't talk to me because I left my phone outside. Did you talk to me all the time now?
I was talking to the chat about men.
Good, because I didn't hear a word. Okay. So the marriage is a 100% risk on the men's side, yeah? Financially and so on.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, 100% is too much, but seriously, the way the laws are now, the risk is really high when the man is the main earner and the wife decides to not work so much.
So it should be abolished. The answer is simple. Campaign to abolish no-fault divorce. But they can't even do that. They are so gutless that they can't even do that, because there is an anti-feminist party in the UK, and I spoke to the leader of it, and he said, I'm not going to do that. And I thought to myself, why would he do that? And then the answer came to me, because he doesn't want to get married. None of his supporters want to get married. And they already know nobody wants to marry them because the social and political pariahs. So they're not even going to go there. And that's the answer, because of low status men that no one wants to marry. So the answer must be for these low status men to find a high status man to say, can you be our poster boy for this campaign to ban no fault divorce? So he's got to be an eligible bachelor that would make women sad if he says he's not going to marry, and that's how to do it. But they can't even think that way, because they're so pathetic.
Could you define low status men for me, please?
Men that women don't want to marry because they're poor, because they're low income, low education, low status.
But there are a hell of a lot of women the same way. So first of all, I don't like that expression, to be honest. It just doesn't sit right with me. You always have, for different reasons, people which aren't very high educated, and they do manual jobs which are very important in this society, and they do these jobs. And yes, they don't earn as much as a doctor or a lawyer, but it's a proper job, right? And you also have women which maybe work in the supermarket. Is that a low status woman if she works in the supermarket and fills up your shelves?
No, I don't. I'm talking about marriageable men that women might want to marry. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not just sort of being, gratuitously, snobbish. I'm saying, there are all these people, but the people who are against feminism tend to be low status, and therefore the immediate assumption of people above them is that because you are low status, you deserve to suffer. What do you expect, born as you are, with the job you have, with your, mediocre looks and mediocre intellect, what do you expect? You can't expect anything much, can you? Bearing in mind, what you are. And so the concerns of these people will always be dismissed by the ruling establishment, because nobody in government cares about these people, because...
So I think what you class as low status men is not what the average woman class as low status non-marriable man, right?
I think I'm really talking about the beta male that women don't fancy. Right, they don't fancy these men. They don't want to marry these men because they're just not attractive.
Yeah. So but that is if you say, okay, an attractive man needs to make loads of money, but that is not reality. So if you go to the supermarket and then there's that man putting all these goods on the shelves, and there's that woman putting all the goods on the shelves. They are work colleagues, they meet each other, they fall in love and marry. And you can look down at them and go, oh, that's a low status marriage.
No,
But for
that's not what I'm talking about. Obviously, there will be men and women of the same class, and they're usually expected to marry each other, right? Working class men and working class women, and upper class men and upper class women. That's fine. But I'm talking about the social and political pariahs who are regarded by the liberal establishment as the demonized, like Trump voters, basket of deplorables. Anyone who votes for AFD maybe in the olden days they would be considered what low status, low education, lower class people, plebs, proletarians.
Yeah, if I think about men which aren't material for a marriage, it's these men which maybe never left the house of the mom, are 30 or 40 and still live with the mom or the parents, right? And maybe have a job, but never got independent and are just not real men in my eyes. They are still sons. Yeah.
Yes.
Also, it's maybe the men which have problems with drinking or drugs and stuff like that, which never really work because of some addictions or just stuff like that, right? Where you think, no, I can't imagine to be with a person like that. But if you talk about a normal marriage, and in a way it doesn't matter which class it is, when kids are involved and you look at the laws in the Western countries, the kids normally stay with the mom. The husband has to pay loads of money, not only child maintenance. If they were married, they need to pay the wife as well. And if the wife turns into a bitch, which easily happens and often happens, and they use the kids as tools, and they use the money to blackmail the man, then it can make the man's life hell. So when it comes to the laws, I would say the laws support the women, and the man is at risk when it comes to that. He doesn't get really good support from the laws because the woman still has the power. So even if the woman goes, do you know what? Yes, the law says you have 50%. You can see the kids every second weekend. There's still this manipulation tactics they can use and put seeds into the kids' heads, so the kids go, I don't want to see my dad. He's an asshole. My mom told me. Well, what can I do? You can pick him up, but they won't come with you, right? So, and if you take in consideration that there are men which really want to be a good father and spend time with their kids, and they end up fighting a bitchy ex-wife, it's a very high risk. It is a very high risk. They married that person at one stage thinking it's a great woman. I want to spend the rest of my life with that woman. And then that woman takes the man to the cleaners, destroying the man financially, destroying the man emotionally by taking the kids away from him. And that is not a good scenario. And the woman gets too much power when it comes to that, I would say. If the woman isn't able to be a decent, responsible mother, which means give the father access to the kids, then she shouldn't have that power, right?
No.
Of course, if it's a good father, and good father means being, not abusive and stuff like that. And the definition good father means can't be made by the woman. It should have to be made by law. Right.
Well, I mean, my way around that would be to make marriage a contract, and therefore making divorce breach of the marriage contract. So you already have, so if you get divorced, it always starts at 50-50, because at the very least you shouldn't have married each other, otherwise you wouldn't be getting divorced now. And then if you want to say, well, he was more wrong than me because he did this terrible thing, well, you can say that. So, the whole idea is to stigmatize divorce. So people don't just say, "Oh, well, it didn't work out. I want space to grow." You know, I'm bored and irritated. So yeah, the whole idea is to return the idea of divorce to fault. Somebody did something wrong,
Yeah,
and
but
it's going to be officially declared.
oh, okay, okay. That's one of the first things when I remember 2015. I was doing a course. That's the first job I had after I had my babies. And I was 2015 was the refugee wave coming. So I did a course and I stood in front of I think 16 people. Half of them were from Africa and half of them were from Arabian countries. They didn't speak German, so I did it in English, and we had like a dolmetscher there and translator there, and we spoke about women in our society. It's a very important subject because women more here do have more rights than over there, and we already had these problems that when a German woman with a short skirt walked around, they thought it's an invite, right?
Yes, they
So,
probably think she's a prostitute or something.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So it's not. And the Africans, they were thinking, oh, if I get a German woman, make her pregnant, I can stay like forever. Which is true because he's the father, and the kid. It's not the kid's fault. So at least he can stay until the kid is 18. But what I did tell them is, right, just for you to know, if you marry here or you are already married and you have your wife here, um, just know that. Um, so I explained to them how it is. I said, if your wife cheats on you with 5 different men at the same time and you divorce her, it's still 50-50. You still pay child maintenance and you still pay money for her while the kids are little. And they couldn't believe it. They never heard about something like that. And they were like, wait, if she does that to me, she is allowed to keep the kids and I have to pay her money until the kids are 18 or finished with education. And I said, yes, that is the law here. And I only wanted to do like a 45-minute lesson about that subject, but it ended up to be like a 2-hour discussion, right? Because they were shocked by that. They were shocked, and we talked about how it is in their countries and what can a woman do? What is she allowed to do to a man? So they wanted to know, where's the limit, right? I said there is no limit. It doesn't matter.
We are a matriarchy.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what what the woman does to you. If you divorce her, there is no court which will punish the woman for cheating, lying, not cleaning the house, being whatever. There is nothing there. So they were shocked about that. It's like, well, but there must be something else, some place I can ring and complain about my wife. No, you can't.
Dear. It's like,
Yeah, but
maybe I
but
want
you
to
get
go back
tired.
home. This is
Won't
the
you get
perfect way to
tired?
send them home. It's like, yeah, this is what you've come to. Now, do you
Yeah,
want to stay
yeah,
or do you
yeah,
really want to go? Bye. Yeah,
yeah.
you can do that.
And then and the African people, I told them, I said, if you marry a German and you two get a kid and you divorce that German after 5 years, because that's how it is, 5 years, and then they get their residence, right? And then you found yourself a nice job, and your full village at home is waiting for you to send money over, because obviously a lot of them are in debts because the village put the money together to send, the strongest teenager over to Germany, and it maybe took him 4 years to come here, and they are waiting for that money. I said, if you get yourself a job and you earn, because they don't many of them weren't very educated, so I put it down and said, okay, let's say you earn 10 or 12 euro, your rent will be this, that, your mobile phone, if you want to have a car, this and that, okay, and then you want to send 200-300 euro over to Africa. Oh wait, and then there's this kid, you need to pay for that kid. So I make the calculation the way it is in Germany, so you are allowed to keep 1,200 euro and then for one kid, it depends what you pay. You have to pay 350, 400, 500, 600 euro a month. It depends, right? How much you earn. It's connected to the income. And they were like, they were shocked about that as well. And I said, well, that's how it
They
is.
say, I want to go home now.
That's what you
I
want.
want to go home.
If you want to be, if you want your German passport and you want to have a job in Germany and think you have enough money to send money over to Africa, have this half German kid here, and have a good life, you are maybe wrong about that. And the cost, it was only men in that course, only men. The women stayed at home if they had wives. Because what happened as well is that when the wives got educated about the possibilities here when it comes to a divorce,
they were going to divorce their husbands.
Of course they did. Of course they did. So we had like, I didn't do that, but a lot of organizations had like consulting offices where the women could go and say, look, I need to leave him. He's abusive. And we have, we call it women houses here. So if they want to, if they need rescue from an abusive relationship, that's where they send them with the kids. So they get like a room or an apartment and psychological help and the kid, all that kind of stuff. And the man got a little bit scared.
Asking for the curse
about,
of Allah.
well, what if my wife
upon whoever is,
runs away
whoever is
and I don't have the kids, I don't have the wife, and then I find a job and how I came here with 4 kids, how much do you want me to pay? It's like, yeah. So when it comes to that, yes, the man is at disadvantage. Although I think, yes, of course, a man has to pay for the kids. But the woman has to do the same thing. That's maybe, again, the feminist in me. I don't know. If I keep the kids, I work and he works, and I some of my wage gets put obviously into the life of the kids, but it's his kids too. So
the Muslim way of dealing with divorce is that up to the age of 7, the kid goes to its mother. After the age of 7, it goes to its father. That would be, the rule of thumb.
But that isn't like that in many countries.
I know.
But you have this, it's what you said earlier when it comes to the shame. So they do take the kids of the women and give it to it's not that the man is raising the kids. No, they give it to the sister or the cousin, some female in the family, in the outer family circles, right? So and sometimes, or often they do live in the same town or village. So the sister lives next to the ex-husband, and then the sister raises the kids. And as a punishment, they take it away from the wife. You know that, don't you?
Sorry, what do they take away from the wife?
The kids.
Right. Well, I mean, if there's a divorce, then the kids should go to the best parent. The British called it in the best interest of the child. So, but they always seem to assume that the child should go to its mother.
Yeah, statistically, it's more than 95% of the time, at least here in Germany.
The kid goes to its mother. Yes, I understand. Yeah. Unless she's proven to be, abusive, etc., etc. But obviously, yes. Divorce is bad anyway,
Yeah, but not every divorce is bad. I've seen good divorces happening but that's just my personal impression is when the woman turns bitchy, then everything goes to hell. If the woman is able to stay reasonable over the kids and stuff and doesn't get financially greedy, and then it could work out well.
Yes, but the law seems to be telling women that, you'd be a fool, not to use this open goal to get men, whatever. And they do, because, even their lawyers say, well, you could sue him for everything and still get it, and you could be in the wrong and still get your way.
Of course, if they bought a house, the house is not paid off. It's in his and in her name, and they have young kids. The court will say, well, the woman keeps the house to raise the kids in the house because it would be psychological bad for the kid if or it's bad. A divorce is bad enough for the kids, so let's at least keep the home. Let's it's all for the kids, which then means the husband has to pay half of the mortgage still.
Yeah, and the thing is, I know men like that. And I said, doesn't it make you angry? Doesn't it make you bitter? And it's like they're so in denial that they can't even acknowledge how angry they are, you know.
Yes, exactly. And if they can afford it, it's okay. And if they have a good relationship and they say, look, really, I want them to stay in that house. I don't want to do that to my kids, that they now need to find another house or only can live in an apartment because she's not working full time. She's only working part time. So she can still be with the kids after school and raise them properly. That is the main thing in my life. That's why I'm happy to pay the mortgage still. But I
Yeah.
do see my kids and I do still speak to her, and our relationship of friendship is amicable. So I'm fine with that. But if it's pressure by court, yeah, then it's another thing. If the man, if the woman uses her power and makes it impossible for the father to see the kids and uses emotional blackmail to financially
Yeah.
blackmail and emotionally blackmail the man, and all the man sees is that half of his wage is going still into that household, but he doesn't benefit anything
Yeah,
from
yeah.
it.
I mean, people will, other men will see it and say, "Well, I'm not stupid. I'm not going to marry some woman and, end up buying the woman I hate a house. Why would I do
Uh,
that? I'm not stupid."
yeah.
And
And the do you know MGTOW?
MGTOW, yeah, yeah, yeah. It's been, the men going their own way. You know, just saying, we're not going to play by those rules anymore. We're never going to marry, and this means more illegitimacy, and more bad parenting and more people unfit to enter the workforce of your European nation, and therefore fueling a demand for further immigration. So all these social problems need to be dealt with, and all their causes acknowledged, rather than, oh, we can't talk about that because it might upset the feminists who are now in charge. They're the ones in charge of well, all kinds of things.
But that is not feminine. If the woman decides to be evil and bitchy and
And tell
emotionally,
lies. It's
yes,
like the historic sexual offence is something that men are vulnerable to. I mean, in theory, women could be vulnerable to that too. I mean, maybe that's the next stage when people are basically using these rules to club and kill each other's reputations, and cause even more social division. But the fact is, these rules are weapons for the malicious of us to use against each other. And
exactly. And if I am in your books a feminist, I don't agree with that the court system is supporting bitchiness and evilness by women. I don't support that at all.
well, but that
So
is what it in effect is, because a lot of family cases are held in camera, which means that people don't. It's not held in open court. So that's already against the laws of natural justice. You can't question it. And if you want to talk about it, you're breaking some sort of court order if you want to challenge some legal decision by the family court. And also, I did know a divorce lawyer, a female one, and she said, well, I know my client is lying when she accuses her ex-husband or her husband of abusing the children. It's like,
mm,
what are you supposed to do? You know it's a lie, but it's your client, and she's making up shit. But
you see, and that this is when morals kick in, right? So women which do that, males can do the same thing, but it's the women which have the kids in 95% of the time. So if the women do play these evil cards, it's a lack of moral standard, right? And it's they are emotional driven. I will destroy this man. I will take him to the cleaners for whatever reasons, hateful reasons, negative reasons. And if you turn around to these women and say, but what about the kids? They want to see the father. The father is an asshole. Yes, in your opinion, but why do you even involve your kids? Well, I love my kids. I do it in their best interest. What do you even mean? You destroy the relationship between the father and the kids, and kids need the father as well. So why do you even think that you are acting in the kids' interest? Right? So they take over, and they have girlfriends which back them up and go, yes, take him to the cleaner. I give you a number of the best divorce lawyer you can get. Take him to the cleaner. You will never have to work again. He will pay for everything forever, and he will sit. He will have to move back to his mom's house and live there and pay all your bills, and he will cry himself to sleep every night.
Or even kill himself, but we know.
Or even kill himself, or become a member of MGTOW, and you will be successful and live the dream with your kids. But that the kids probably over that battle will have emotional scars for the rest of their lives doesn't even matter for this super good mom in that moment, right?
Yeah.
And that is like, so that is something is out of balance there as well.
Yeah, and it's so crazy that divorce is always the default option. So I had this girlfriend who said, well, her husband was roughing her up a bit, and I said, just say this, do that, blah blah blah, and then it'll stop, and well, she was so grateful to me because it did stop, after she followed my advice. But what she mentioned, I mean, I wasn't the only girlfriend that she mentioned it to. She told a few of her other female friends, and they would say, well, divorce him and take him to the cleaners. And she, because, she decided not to. And these girlfriends who were urging her to divorce him just stopped speaking to her. That's how bad, the culture is.
Yeah. You see, and I would never ever advise any of my female friends, if they ever get a divorce, to fight that kind of battle. It's just, a divorce is an emotional thing, and not every divorce, the reasons for a divorce can be very hurtful and emotional and all these kind of things. But at one stage, you do have the responsibility as a woman and also as a mom to put your emotions aside and use, what is it called, differential thinking, and look at the situation from all perspectives and be fair, right? So it didn't work out. Yeah, okay, you do live in a country where it's possible to get a divorce, so now the divorce is happening. But why destroying a person you once decided to marry with the intention to stay with them forever? I don't know why. I've never understood that. I see that here on YouTube even. People are friends, and oh yeah, it's all great. It's the best person I ever met online. It doesn't matter if it's online or not online, but then they fall out, and then it's like, how do you behave then? How, just because when a friendship ends, you can decide to not talk to that person or about that person. Why is it that people think when a time they had together ends, why is it always dirty washing? I've never understood that, really. I'm not a bitch, really. I'm not. I can get bitchy, but that's very rare. Very rare. But I know bitches, which are sweethearts, but bitches as well, right? And it needs self-control to not be bitchy and to stay fair and to maybe be a little bit self-controlled as well, which is maybe easier when you get older. But I've never understood that. Why you need to destroy a person who once meant a lot to you in your life. And for sure, when you decided to have kids with that person.
Malice
it's not
and ego.
The decision.
Malice and ego. And a lack of a sense of proportion, a lack of moral education about what it is permissible to do and not permissible to do to ex-friends, you know?
Yes. Yeah, that's probably what it is. Interesting. I would think about that a little. You know, when I never knew about MGTOW. I read about it the first time maybe 3-4
They
months
really
ago.
hate us.
Pardon?
I said men really, I mean, gender relations is so bad. That is, you know, I think the thing that is the problem, which will make it very difficult for men and women to bond and marry and stay together and look after the children. So, you know, it's something that needs addressing.
But if MGTOW, the existence, the pure existence of MGTOW is so sad, and I don't know who's to blame for that. Probably both parties, but I'm sure.
No fault divorce, and people refusing
females. You can have an amicable divorce. It's possible. Even, you know, relationships can end amicable. It's on the people how reasonable they are able to behave and want to behave. And if you let go and run on emotions and you don't stop yourself, yes, then it can get evil. But I think the existence of MGTOW, I think if I remember right, I mean, it's not a new movement. I think it's from 2001, 2002, I don't know. I think it did get created over exactly what we spoke earlier, like divorce and fathers being super depressed because the woman decided to turn into the devil and take the husband, the ex-husband, to the cleaners. And they are left with nothing, and not even the will to live anymore. And that is like...
And they can't even fight. They can't even just do the obvious thing. It's like, well, that fixed the you know, bargain of marriage to make it more of an attractive bargain to men. But the culture is just against it. Like, if you marry, you're stupid, you know. And the government is just saying, okay, that, you know, that's how you want it. We'll give you more kinds of marriage substitutes, like, you know, different kinds of sex you could be having, different kinds of relationships you could be having instead of marriage. You know, because they're too weak to argue against it, or maybe they just don't care, or they don't know.
But the fear is real. The fear to trust a woman and to build a family, the fear is real. And that is a problem.
Yes, because they know they won't get justice, so they won't even go there. And nobody cares enough. Even anti-feminist men don't even dare to say, you know, no fault divorce is the problem, because they're afraid of being embarrassed. They're afraid of, you know, hearing women say, who wants to marry you anyway?
Yeah.
It's all something little very petty, like social embarrassment. But we know beta males are, you know, fundamentally low status and insecure. And obviously this sort of thing needs to be made from above. But even the men at the top are afraid of being taken to the cleaners by their wives. You see, because they have even more to lose.
I'm just laughing about this man at the top, and who's not at the top is a beta man, and all these kind of things. And I mean, I believe every single man, if they are honest to themselves, knows the feeling of insecurity. It doesn't matter if you are an alpha man, that you still know that feeling. It's just how you deal with that feeling, right?
Well, I think if you're an alpha male, you know not to complain, because to complain will just sort of mean that you're a victim as a man, and you know, women don't want their men to be victims because they want somebody to look after them. They won't want to be looking after some victim, sick, stupid man. And it's like they don't get it. You know, it's like women won't admit that's what they want. They don't want some sick, stupid, you know, skint man. They don't want to say that because it makes them sound mean. But, you know, and then they encourage men to be like them, and men then, you know, pour out their heart and say, oh, I'm poor, I'm stupid. And, you know, it's like, yeah, you're stupid, and no one wants anything to do with you because you are so stupid, and you don't deserve to breed, and you were lucky that any woman who screwed you over even, looked at you for one moment because you're a
You
stupid
see,
victim,
you
fuck
and
of a
me,
tart.
you and me, which is maybe a good thing, and it would be, I mean, because we are so different as women, it would be strange if you and me would like the same qualities in men. So I see, I like empathetic men. I like men which are able to understand my thought processes and follow my thought processes and even understand the way I feel when I explain the way I feel. And you know, these kind of men which when you explain to them the way you see something and how you feel, and they just look at you and go, no, I don't understand you really. No, I have no clue what you are talking about. But I know these kind of men. They are funny and everything is good, but they wouldn't be relationship material for me. And that doesn't mean I want a weak man, but I want a thinker. I want a self-reflective man. I want a man who does care about my feelings as well, because I care about his feelings. And I would be, seriously, I find it more or less inhuman if I would think just because he's a man, he doesn't have feelings. And if he tells me his feelings, which you could say complains about something, it's like, you are not a man if you feel that way or think that way. No, 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 no. I want a man to be honest with me and real, and not behaving like a emotionless alpha man who can conquer the world. No.
Well, I think sometimes it's difficult for us women, sometimes you go, oh, that's ridiculous, you're boasting, or, blowing your own trumpet, or whatever. And maybe they need to do that. Maybe they need to signal that I'm going to be successful. And and those losers you're thinking of, thinking are my rivals or not, sometimes they have to do that, and we just have to accept that, they have to kind of thump their chest or something for a bit. And unless we know how it is for men to pursue women, you know we I don't think we can presume to think that we know better. It's like, yeah, we want men to be, on one hand, successful, but and maybe ruthless, but only to other people, but not to us. It's like, maybe we can't get the right mix. We want a bad boy, but not a bad boy who's bad to us, only to other people.
Oh, that was in puberty. I don't want a bad boy, but what I appreciate, and what I think is a big difference between men and women is, I think as a woman I'm far more emotional than men, and I like when I'm emotional about a certain situation and I explain it, and it's very complex and it's very emotional, and I explain it from all different sides, and then the man comes with his, oh yeah, I understand all that, but it's a mess. I'm an emotional mess and everything is very complicated in my mind and in my emotional world. And the man comes and looks at the situation, talks it through with me, and he's more on the rational level, and he then sorts me in a way, like, and the mess with the help of him turns into a, oh, okay, now I see, and then I think about it, and then things are clearer. So I need men for that sometimes. It's good for me um, to look at a situation less emotionally sometimes, to see how it really is, right?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I need days to do that. But when I speak to a man short after a situation and he explains it his way, I'm much faster in that process because I know he's right. But if I would do it on my own in my mind, it would take me days.
Yeah.
That's just what it is. I would get there, same, but it would take me more time because the emotions are in the way sometimes,
Yeah,
right?
because people have their blind spots. You can be talking to people for ages, and it's like they still don't get it. I mean, do you ever find yourself in these relationships Usually with somebody you know for ages, it's like, but for some reason they just can't understand what you're saying. But they think
I
they do. They think they do. So, and you think, oh, the going. It's this subject again that we always get stuck on, and I think maybe in every relationship there is this subject that people will always get stuck on.
I have a very complicated relationship with my mom sometimes. Um, and when I have had a situation with her and I tell Brian about it, he goes, "Well, just don't go. Just don't go there. Or don't ring her." That's his solution. Don't talk to her about it. That's how easy it is, right? So I stopped talking to him about it because that's what he says. So what I do now, I ring one of my old friends, which know the matter, because it's always the same. I complain about, so I don't even ask him anymore because this. Don't go there then. Don't ring her then. Well, that does not really help me. So uh, I bother my friends with it, which know about it, and they give me more.
Yeah, I mean, you can't not call your mother because then you feel so bad. So,
Of
it's
course,
like
it's
you,
not
you,
a
you just have
solution.
to, take whatever annoying thing that she says. But I guess you can,
He
well,
means
not,
well.
not be so irritated by it, perhaps,
Yeah, exactly. Oh no, another good one is don't think about it. Don't think about it. How do I do that? How do I do that? Just stop thinking about it. Hmm.
Yeah, because I think people that we know for a long time, they know which buttons to push to upset us. They know what to say. They know some little thing in the past that we're a little bit embarrassed about and ashamed of. Whatever it is, and of course, mother would know, how to annoy us and remind us of our defects and flaws. So, yeah, and I think actually I find doing this has actually made me better at dealing with my own mother. It's like, I can see why you're saying this. You're annoyed at me and you want to da da da. And it used to bother me much more, but now I can take it.
Yeah. I'm just thinking when I sit here and speak to her on the phone and Brian passes and I roll my eyes or something, and he knows it's a talk which isn't easy for me, or I don't like it. And then when I put the phone down, he goes, "You will think about that now for days, won't you?" And I say, "Yes, of course." Well, just don't. Just don't. How? You get a shower. What? No, I will ring my friend. Let's see what she says. And then it's okay. I speak to my friend about it. She gives me a better insight, and then it's fine. And then I still think about it for days. But men have this ability. When he says that, he would do it like that, right? He would just make his mind not think about it. He can.
Think about
Can you?
what what you saying he's able to multitask, or I mean, sorry,
No,
what.
he's making himself able. If he decides he doesn't want to think about, I don't know, a certain subject, let's say a worry, something he worries about, he can make himself stop thinking about it. When the thought pops up in his mind, he just stops that thought and pushes himself to think about something else. Can you do that?
Maybe I don't know if it's good or bad. Maybe I should worry about those things. I don't know. I mean, sometimes I can, sometimes I can't. I guess that's the most honest answer I can give you. And it depends on how big it is. I mean, if it's a little thing or a big thing.
Yeah, if it's a thing which comes back to your mind all the time during the day, and when you have a moment, you're driving in your car or you're laying down at night, and that thought comes back, I find it, hard to push that thought back. I like to think things through. It comes to my mind for a reason, so it's something I want to sort in my mind. So I normally welcome these thoughts, and if I push them away, they always come back. So it's maybe a lack of mind control I have there. I don't know. I'm just, God, what am I talking here?
Well, I think, maybe worry is a good thing. So it's like, well, then you really need to do something about it, or oh, it's nothing, but it depends on the nature of the thing, isn't it? Whether it's something you can do something about,
Yeah,
or
exactly.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Is it something I can actually change or not? Right.
and whether you are to blame. Oh, that's the other
Oh
thing.
yeah, 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 yeah. Yes, that's important as well. That's true. Anyway, do you know what? I think I will jump off now.
Well, thank you for joining me, and obviously this stream is so much more worthwhile that we have had the benefit of your input.
It's always great to talk to you, Claire. Always. Have a good day.
And the same to you. Take care. All right, I have dealt with all the chat, so I will play the outro and say goodbye to you now.